Hi, so we are going to continue today graphing using y equals mx plus b. So graphing linear equations by using slope-intercept form. So if we're using y equals mx plus b, we have to get y on a side by itself. So what I would like you to do is stop the video, and I would like you to do the 4 warm-up exercises and then come back and turn on the video to check your answers of taking linear equations and getting y by itself and putting them into y equals mx plus b or slope-intercept form. So let's take a look here now at number 1. I need to get y by itself, so I'm going to subtract 8x. That is a negative y, so I'm going to divide by everything by negative 1. So y equals negative 5 plus 8x, because a negative over a negative is a positive. As we discussed in class, we want this in slope-intercept form, so this would be 8x minus 5. When you reverse these or rewrite it, the sign should be the same. Okay, number 2. First thing I have to do is subtract 3x. All right, so I have 2 minus 3x. Now, y is not by itself. I have to divide by 2. What I do to one term, I do to all terms. So I'm dividing all terms by 2. So I end up with y equals 6 minus 3 halves x. That's not wrong, but that's not slope-intercept form. It should be y equals negative 3 halves x plus 6. Number 3, getting y by itself. The first thing I have to move is the x, so I'm going to subtract x. And the next thing I have to do is divide every term by 4. So I will have y equals 3/4 minus. Now, I could write that as x over 4, but I would encourage you to put the 1/4 x, because then you can see what slope is. Putting this in slope-intercept form, y equals negative 1/4 x plus 3/4. So remember, just a reminder, when you're moving your x, you're adding or subtracting it. Okay, you can't put unlike terms together, but when you divide every term. And then number 4, I'm going to subtract my 2x, and then I'm going to divide every term by negative 5. So I would have 8 divided by negative 5, which is negative 8/5, and I would have a negative 2 divided by negative 5, so that's 2/5. So I have y equals negative 8/5 plus 2/5 x, again, slope-intercept form. The slope should be first, so y equals 2/5 x minus 8/5. So now what I would like you to do, once again, is stop the video, and I want you to do problems 5, 6, 7, and 8. And 5, 6, 7, and 8 are telling you to go back to number 1 and write down the slope and the y-intercept. Go to number 2 and write down the slope and y-intercept. Go to number 3, same thing, same thing. Okay, so if you are back, number 5, the slope is 8. We could write it as 8 or 8 over 1 to help us with graphing. The y-intercept, I would encourage you to write it as 0, negative 5, because people get mixed up. The y-intercept is a point, and we need that point to start graphing. Number 6, the slope is negative 3 halves. The y-intercept, or b, is 0, 6. Number 7, the slope is negative 1/4. The y-intercept is 0, 3/4, or b equals 3/4. And number 8, the slope is 2/5, and the y-intercept is 0, negative 8/5. All right, so now let's take these, and I want you to do the same thing in examples 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I want you to stop the video, and I want you to get y by itself and name the slope and y-intercept. So stop the video for examples 1, 2, 3, and 4. Get y by itself if it isn't already, and then name the slope and the y-intercept. Okay, so we are back, and example 1, y equals 3x minus 2. All right, already in slope-intercept form, so the slope is 3, or I could write it as 3 over 1 because slope is rise over run. The y-intercept is 0, negative 2. Write the y-intercept as a point. Okay, number 2, I had to subtract 9x, but then put it in slope-intercept form, so the slope is first, so y equals negative 9x plus 7. The slope is negative 9, or negative 9 over 1. The y-intercept is 0, 7. Example 3, I had to subtract 3x, but that's not a y, that's a negative y, so I had to divide everything by a negative 1. So I get y equals negative 8 plus 3x. All right, we don't want to leave it like that. We want to say y equals 3x minus 8. All right, example 4, I had to subtract 5x and then divide everything by 2. So I get y equals 6 divided by 2 is 3 minus 5 halves x. So y equals mx plus b, y equals negative 5 half x plus 3. So the slope is negative 5 halves, the y-intercept is 0, 3. So as we started to talk about yesterday, how can I use slope and y-intercept to graph? All right, so let's talk about all the ways we've learned how to graph so far. We've talked about graphing, making an XY chart. That always works. You can always do that, but it can be time consuming. The other way we learned how to graph was using X and Y intercepts. Remember a special XY chart where you only then find 2 points and graph. Okay, the third way and most common and probably most preferred is using slope-intercept form using the y-intercept and the slope. So you got to make sure it's in slope-intercept form. All right, and then identify your slope and y-intercept. So in example 5, it is in slope-intercept form, so my slope is 4, or 4 over 1. My b is 0, negative 5. Now, to start graphing a line, you have to have a point. So the point that we really need to start with is our y-intercept. So you can't just start graphing the slope, you got to have a starting point. That's where you use your y-intercept. So I go down to 0, negative 5. Now my slope is positive 4, so I go up 4, right 1. Up 4, right 1. Remember, rise over run. And we can see that this is increasing, it's going uphill, and it makes sense because I have a positive 4 for slope. Now, I would say this is kind of steep, but this is a number bigger than 1. So it's good. The bigger number you get, the more steep it will be. Okay, example 6 is in slope-intercept form. Y is by itself, so identify your slope and y-intercept. My slope is negative 2 or negative 2 over 1. My y-intercept is 0, 4. I have to start with my point. The biggest mistake I will have people make is they'll start on the x-axis. This is why I have you write the y-intercept as a point, 0, 4. 0, 4 is up here. Now, a negative 2. Down means negative, so I could go down 2, right 1, because down means negative, right means positive. Negative over positive is a negative. Down 2, right 1. Now, I ran out of room here, but I could have gone up 2, which is a positive, and left 1. Up is positive, left is negative. We get a decreasing line, not a shocker, because my slope is negative. All right, let's take a look at number 7. My line is already in slope-intercept form, so my slope is 2/3. My y-intercept is 0, negative 4. So I start at my y-intercept. This is why I have you write it as a point. Don't just write negative 4 because people are going to mark it on the x-axis. 0, negative 4. So a slope of 2/3 means I could go up 2, right 3, up 2, right 3. My point should be here. Now, slope of 2/3 also means I could go down 2, left 3, because down is negative, left is negative. A negative over a negative is positive. And my slope is positive, so my line should be uphill. It is increasing. Number 8. This is also in slope-intercept form. My slope is negative 1/4. My y-intercept, or b, is 0, 3. Now, what do I expect? Well, first of all, it's negative, so I should expect a line going downhill, a decreasing line. 1/4, isn't that smaller than 1? So it should be a fairly flat line. All right, so start at your y-intercept, 0, 3. Now, negative 1/4 means I could go down 1, which is a negative, and right 4, which is a positive. Negative over a positive is a negative. Or I could go up 1 and left 1. Up's positive, left's negative. Positive over a negative is a negative. Not a shocker, we got a line that's decreasing. It looks kind of flat because my slope is less than 1. Okay, last 2 questions. Example 9. We are not in slope-intercept form, so we have to get y by itself. So we're going to subtract 2x and divide by negative 4. So be careful on your signs. 8 over negative 4 is negative 2. Negative 2 over negative 4 is a positive 1/2. So slope-intercept form would be y equals 1/2 x minus 2. So my y-intercept is 0, negative 2. My slope is 1/2. You always start with a point, and your point is your y-intercept. So my y-intercept is 0, -2. I went up 1, right 2, up 1, right 2. Of course, a positive slope, this is increasing. Okay, last one. X plus 3y equals 9. Get y by itself. So I have to subtract x and divide everything by 3. 9 over 3 is 3. Now, you could leave it as x over 3, but I don't think the slope is obvious. Isn't there like a ghost of 1 there? So that would be like a -1/3 x. So putting it in slope-intercept form, the slope should be first. So it's y equals -1/3 x plus 3. Okay, I should expect a downhill line with a negative slope and kind of a flatter line because my slope's less than 1. So my y-intercept is 0, 3. I start on the y-axis. I can go down 1, right 3, down 1, right 3, or I could have gone up 1, left 3. So the main point is getting y by itself, getting this in y equals mx plus b, identifying the slope and the y-intercept. To graph, you have to start with a point, and the point that you start with in these is your y-intercept.